Kansas City, and welcome to this year's State of the City. I'm joining you from our new Kansas City International Airport Terminal, the single largest infrastructure project in the history of our city. We'll be open for business here on February 28th, on time and on budget. The new terminal is the front door to our community, opening just in time to welcome visitors for the NFL Draft in April, NCAA March Madness, and of course the World Cup in 2026. The airport features art from talented local artists as well as local shops and Kansas City restaurants. Kansas City government would not have had this success without our workers, including the many associated with minority and women-owned construction firms, and the many coming from our organized labor community. Unions helped build this city, and they continue to do so today. Whether it's in connection with our work to build a new women's professional soccer stadium on the riverfront, or as we expand pedestrian accessibility and amenities at the corner of 18th and Vine. We are proud to be a union city, and proud to be one of few growing major Midwestern cities. Today marks my fourth State of the City speech, and tomorrow, along with the city manager, I'll unveil my fourth budget for the people, which will amount to $2 billion to address our most important city priorities. We've been through a lot over the past 4 years. A pandemic that took hundreds of lives in our city. Protests and calls for more equity in how our city delivers services. Severe budget challenges, and on the bright side, of course, 3 Super Bowl runs for the Kansas City Chiefs. I ran for this office 4 years ago saying we were a city that could walk and chew gum. We could build a new outstanding airport, the one you see behind me, erect new buildings downtown, but we could also invest historic sums in affordable and accessible housing, paying our city workers more, and fixing our decaying infrastructure. I am proud to say you, Kansas City, have delivered, and more progress is ahead. During my first year in office, I met Ray, a snowplow driver in our Public Works Department. I shadowed him for a day to learn hands-on about how our city responds to snowstorms. Ray was a dedicated city employee for more than 2 decades, and certainly seen his share of snowstorms and dangerous weather. Through no fault of Ray's, it was clear to me that our response to those snowstorms was inadequate. But today, we are no longer reactionary. Instead, we are ensuring we have enough trucks, 300 to be exact, and drivers to reach every Kansas City neighborhood. And we have heard from you, the public, that have seen snow plows on some residential streets for the first time in 10, 15, and even 20 years. Even on the coldest of days, this work warms my heart, and I'm grateful for the women and men who work so hard for our city each and every day. That's why, importantly, we have increased the minimum wage for our full-time Kansas City employees by 13%, where our starting salary is now $17.35 an hour, which is 30% more than Missouri's minimum wage. We've included mental health and family caregiving as acceptable uses for sick leave, and we extended paid parental leave, something vital for all of us as parents, from 6 weeks to 12 weeks. We've also continued to build a more inclusive workplace for all, including ensuring that all of our fire stations, once and for all, are equipped with gender-neutral facilities. These benefits and fair wages provide the ability to earn a dignified living that we can all be proud of, rather than asking our city team to do hard work for far too little pay. Growing up here in Kansas City, I also know personally the cost of potholes and poor road maintenance on the pocketbooks of Kansas Cityans like me. During the pandemic year, and despite tight budgets then and after, we committed to boosting our annual street repair program by millions of dollars, allowing us to resurface more than 400 lane miles in the current fiscal year, and more than 800 lane miles, or 15% of all lane miles in the entire city, since I became mayor in 2019. And more is to come. As a colleague of mine once said, potholes are not an act of God. They are a result of poor maintenance. We know we have much more work to do, but we're finally digging out from generations of poor maintenance and are planning to resurface another 400 lane miles next year, so we can continue to build a road system that Kansas Cityans can be proud of. And we'll also continue to hold accountable Spire and our other utilities that have cut up our streets so that they ensure they pay their fair share to improve and rebuild streets and sidewalks that they destroy. Infrastructure improvements are not limited to our roads and sewers. We're also working to improve the environment all around us. This year, Kansas City won the Mayor's Climate Protection Award for our sustained efforts to improve transit access and affordability. With the funds received, I was able to launch the Mayor's Tree Fund to plant more trees citywide, particularly in East Kansas City, so that we can reduce childhood asthma, pollution, and build a better environment for all of our children and families. I'm also pleased to announce that this year's budget will propose $1 million to plant 10,000 trees across Kansas City in every area of our city over the next 3 years. To continue building a more walkable, sustainable, and green community, this year's budget will include $5 million for sidewalk repairs. It will fund the expansion of bulky item trash pickup, street and litter cleaning, and it adds $11 million for LED light conversion, and importantly, our new recycling carts. Gone will be the days when paper floated in the wind, your cardboard recycling disintegrated on the curb in the rain, and raccoons huddled on the curb to feast on your trash. A beautiful, clean city is one that we can all be proud of. When our neighborhoods are clean and free of blight, our community is safer, healthier, and happier. We are committed to seeing it through. To be a safe and healthy city, we also need to make sure we protect our neighborhoods. Over recent years, short-term rentals like those offered on the Airbnb app have sprouted up all over Kansas City's neighborhoods. In too many instances, short-term rentals like Airbnbs have brought excessive trash, noise, and shootings to previously quiet residential neighborhoods. Our city will no longer tolerate a wild west of unregulated short-term rentals on quiet streets full of single-family homes. In our upcoming budget, we propose hiring 6 inspectors for Airbnbs and other short-term rentals to shut down those violating rules. And in April, our residents will be able to vote on 2 use tax proposals related to short-term rentals to ensure that they are listed, regulated, can be located, and have to pay their fair share to keep our city safe. Airbnbs and other short-term rentals, particularly businesses that own 50, 80, or even 100 single-family homes in our city, also have negatively impacted housing affordability in Kansas City. Limits on the total number of short-term rentals and regulation will ensure we continue to have neighborhoods accessible for our homeowners, not unregulated hotels that are operating on quiet city blocks. Since 2019, our city has also recognized housing access and affordability as an essential part of how we can be viable for the future, particularly in our oldest areas of Kansas City, including our east side and in Midtown. Kansas City has invested millions to help build and rehab more than 1,000 units of affordable housing in Kansas City, helping thousands of our neighbors, including children and families, find new homes in our city. Thanks to you, our voters, Kansas City also has added $50 million to our Housing Trust Fund, something I first passed as legislation when I was serving as a city councilman, but now we fully fund it. With this investment, the Housing Trust Fund now has the resources to build housing, including truly affordable housing for those transitioning out of homeless, and we can build it in every corner of our city. Just last week, City Council approved a second round of funding for affordable housing projects, which provided another $11 million for projects throughout our city. Hundreds of more homes for our friends and our neighbors. In the next year, we will invest over $1.3 million in aid to those experiencing homelessness, an additional $400,000 to help ward off evictions. The Right to Counsel program, which provides free legal support for those facing eviction, provided support to more than 1,000 individuals and families since the program launched in June of 2022. This boost in funding will help us reach more families at risk of eviction and keep more families housed. I grew up knowing homelessness, so it's personal. And I'll never forget some cold days as an adolescent, staying in a one-room motel with my family and the old Crown Lodge Motel on 350 Highway. That wasn't easy. And it's not easy today for the hundreds of Kansas City kids with no permanent place to sleep. We are making an historic investment in housing, unmatched at any time in the past in Kansas City, because it is right, it is just, and it is essential for our kids, our families, and our future. We're working to build 10,000 affordable homes in Kansas City by 2027, when I'm required to leave the mayor's office. I'm proud that we're taking steps in the right direction and doing right by the people, repopulating the core of our city, and stemming generations of population loss, particularly in the Jackson County portion of Kansas City. We also launched, in connection with homelessness, our Zero KC plan to end homelessness within 5 years. It provides individuals with resources and services, including jobs, to find safe and stable housing. Another program, Clean Up KC, is employing those who experience homelessness to help clean up our streets and to be great ambassadors in every part of our city. We've already seen the good this has done for our neighborhoods and our community members. We are well on our way to ending homelessness, and we are proud to be a city with a heart. 10,000 new or renovated units of housing, 10,000 new trees planted, and better pay and benefits for the 7,000 employees associated with Kansas City government. This is doing right by the people. But we know when we consider our violent crime numbers, we have a lot more work to do. While our investments in housing, better pay, and a new investment of $500,000 for youth summer employment and $650,000 for youth programming will help build safer communities and opportunities for our kids, we know that we have a lot more work to do. As a young intern for former Mayor Kay Barnes some years ago, I know firsthand the value of opportunities for our young people. That experience was formative, exposing me to the challenges and successes of our people and communities, while sparking a lifelong love of mine in public service and getting the tutelage, learning under the tutelage of an exceptional leader. Whether it is youth programming during the hot summer nights at one of our community centers, a baseball camp at the Urban Youth Baseball Academy, or an internship with one of our local businesses, this funding for our youth is vital to creating opportunities that help them build stronger lives long term. Our future leaders are all around us in Kansas City today, and we're proud in our next budget to support them. Our efforts to build safer communities will not stop with housing or youth investments. We also have an opportunity through our new marijuana sales tax proposal. Our city has proposed an additional 3% tax on our marijuana sales, which if passed in April, will fund areas to directly combat the root causes of violence. We know blight and lack of basic resources contribute to violence and are currently underfunded. We'll use revenue from the sale of recreational marijuana to clean up our neighborhoods, improve our response to homelessness, and bolster our violence prevention program. In addition to those efforts, we're also funding our Park Rangers program to ensure that our public gathering places in parks and on boulevards throughout our city will have security to address incidents in or near our park and boulevard areas. These rangers will be trained in crisis intervention and will help Kansas Cityans experiencing homelessness connect with services. They'll also help us keep our parks clean and will work with our police to keep all of our park goers safe. These are just a few of our many creative solutions proposed by this administration to keep Kansas City safe. But we also know we can never accept the status quo in violent crime, which is why I'm proud to stand with council and philanthropic leaders in our community to propose millions more in violence prevention, funding in our next year budget up to $6 million and $30 million over the next 5 years to help us prevent and address the root causes of violence. In 2014, Kansas City had only 79 homicides. Now, we regularly double that number. We have to and we must do better. A key part of how we get there is violence prevention and intervention, getting at root causes of crime, and working in collaboration with the Kansas City Police Department, helmed by our first woman permanent police chief, Stacey Graves. Chief Graves and her command staff have worked closely with the city and local prosecutors to enhance the city's Partners for Peace program, ran by my Director of Public Safety, Melissa Johnson. Ms. Johnson grew up and still resides on Kansas City's east side and has dedicated her professional career to public safety in our city. I thank Ms. Johnson, I thank Chief Graves, and I thank all of those who are part of this vital work to make our communities and our neighborhoods safer. Every week, KCPD provides Partners for Peace contact information for every victim of a non-fatal shooting and family members of a victim of a homicide. A team member then reaches out and connects them to support services they may need, including affordable housing, mental health or substance abuse treatment, conflict resolution training, and trauma counseling. All resources provided by so many important agencies in our city. And much has happened over the past 4 years, but KCPD, our community, and our city leadership must work together if we are to solve the problem of violence that plagues our community. In addition to the proposal to increase our funding in violence prevention and investments in our health department, we're proposing a police department budget increase of $11.5 million for a total budget of KCPD in our next budget year of $280 million, which will allow for the hiring of more officers and more funding to hire and attract 911 call takers. Just weeks ago, Kansas City's council voted to spend an additional $19 million to improve KCPD's technology. And in addition to that, we're allocating $6 million to start the design process on a new detention and rehabilitation center to get violent criminals off of our street and to provide mental health services to those who need a second chance. The city is committed to working with Chief Graves and the women and men of law enforcement to build a safer community. From our department, we ask that they continue the important work to build better community relations in every part of our city, particularly in our Black community, and to maintain accountability to ensure that that which we just saw in Memphis would and could never happen in Kansas City. I trust Chief Graves and her command staff are up to the job. I'll also continue to call on our state legislature to provide more local control in what we do in policing in Kansas City each day. Earlier this month, I went to the state capitol to call for the removal of state-imposed restrictions on what we can pay our chief of police and our underpaid rank-and-file police officers. I also will continue to advocate for incentives to recruit more 911 call takers who are essential to public safety. No one in our city should ever wait on hold when they call 911. These steps are vital to ensuring that we continue to attract and retain the best law enforcement and the best police civilians, talent in the region, and of course in the nation. While my family stayed at that Crown Lodge Motel off 350 Highway that I mentioned a minute ago, back in my youth, I remember sometimes the view from this somewhat desolate parking lot. You'd look out and you'd see highways, trees, and a beautiful city skyline in the distance. On even the darkest days, and there were more than a few, that view told me that there was hope on the other side. For me, my sisters, my mothers, for my city. Now as a new father, I have occasion to consider the city I wish to see not just for my own later years, but the one that my son will see and know as his home. A city celebrating diversity in all its forms, including welcoming those who may be new to our country, looking for work or hope, those from the LGBTQ+ community, for whom Kansas City is often a refuge in states where they are told to hide their true selves. I want my son to know a city that embraces progress for all, like our zero-fare bus transit system and streetcars zero-fare system that connect neighborhoods and parts of our city for people at all income levels and throughout the city, where thousands of new housing units for all is a right. I want the same for a business owner looking to expand in Waldo that a young Parks Department employee starting a family in the Santa Fe neighborhood may have. I want the kid looking out from a window or a parking lot somewhere to know that no matter what comes the next day, brighter days are on the horizon for them, their family, and their city. We are well on our way. I thank you, the people of Kansas City, through your calls, through your votes, and through your work, for helping us build that hope for all. May God bless you, and may God bless our great city.